Okay, can anyone tell me what a graph is? Yes, it is a diagram or a picture representing connections among two or more things by using dots, lines, or bars. There are many different kinds of graphs, but today we're going to actually learn about bar graphs and histograms. Does anyone know what a bar graph is or have a guess at what a bar graph is? Good. A bar graph is a graph using parallel bars of various lengths to compare different things from different categories. Here is an example of one. This is a bar graph representing the birthdays of students by month. So you have the different categories on the bottom for January, February, March, April, May, the different months. And the bars go up to the number of students that actually have January birthdays, or February birthdays, or March, etc. And they're parallel lines, and they have little spaces in between. Does anyone know what a histogram looks like? Well, here is an example of one. This is the frequency of scores on a test. So frequency is how many times it occurs, and the score is the math test or whatever test is talking about. So for a histogram, can anyone tell me any differences between the two graphs that I've shown you? Between these two? Okay, let's make a T-chart of the differences that y'all come up with between the two. Okay, so like I said, the bar graph has spaces, as the histogram does not have spaces in between the parallel bars. So we'll put spaces and no spaces. This is just a minor difference, but it is a difference, in fact. Any other ideas? Yes, bars in the histogram doesn't represent just a single category. The bars in the histogram actually represent ranges of data. So like this one represents all the scores between 0 to 10. So this accounts for how many students actually scored on this test between a 0 and a 10. So they could have scored a 6 or a 9, and they would be in this category or in this range. And it goes on down. This is 10 to 20, so this is that range, and 20 to 30, etc. And for bar graphs, this is just a category. So there's not a range for you to pick from of numbers or data. It's actually just a category. So how many students actually have a birthday in January? And that's what this bar represents. Okay, so we'll put, for bar graphs, they use categories for the bars. And for histograms, they use ranges of data. Okay. So let's think of different sets of data and see whether it would be better to use a histogram or whether it would be better to use a bar graph. Suppose we ask everyone in the class what their favorite animal is between a rabbit, a horse, a dog, or an elephant. To represent this data, would you rather use a histogram or a bar graph? Well, we'll think about what the objects are, whether it's a range or whether it's categories. And in this case, it's actually categories. So which one of these uses categories? Yes, we want to use a bar graph. So if we want to represent test scores in ranges of tens, just like this example, of a class, which would we use? Correct. It would be best to use a histogram since it's representing ranges of data. Okay, does anyone have any questions about that or confused about anything? Great. Okay, let's create a couple of bar graphs ourselves and histograms as a class. Okay. So say we want to graph these scores from a math test. So say people get 70, they get a 55, they get a 61, they get an 80, an 85, a 72, a 65, a 40, 74, a 68, and an 84. Okay, which graph type would you like to use? Are these categories, or could you arrange these into ranges of data or ranges of numbers? Yes, this would actually be a histogram. That would be the best way to represent it. So let's fill in this chart so we can create the histogram. When you're doing histograms, it's best to get a chart like this where you select different ranges and then you tally out how many of each of those different ranges you have. So for this one, for the range of 40 to 49, how many people actually scored from 40 to 49? Correct. We only have one number that's between 40 to 49. So we put a big one tally there. So for the score 50 to 59, how many people scored in that range? Correct. Just one. Okay, so for the 60 to 69 range, how many people scored in that range? Well, we have 1, 2, 3. So there are 3. So we put 3 tally marks. Okay, for 70 to 79, how many people scored in that range? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 tally marks again. Okay, then how about for 80 to 89? There's actually 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 tally marks again. Okay, so now we can make our histogram. Let's do it underneath here. Okay, so first we want to draw our X and Y axis. And everyone remembers that the horizontal line is actually your X axis and your vertical line is actually your Y axis. So what do we want to place along the X axis for this graph? Can anyone tell me? Great, we want the ranges or the scores that are actually on the test. So we'll write down here scores. Okay? And then what do we want to label the Y-axis as? Yes, we actually want to label it as students because the students, we're going to count how many students actually made a certain score. So on the Y-axis, we put students. Okay? What is the lowest amount of students for the graph? What is the lowest amount of tally marks on our sheet that we have? Well, the lowest number is actually 1 in both of these cases. So the lowest number we need on our Y-axis is 1. So we'll put that like that. Okay, so the first line on our Y-axis will be 1 and we'll go up from here. So 1, 2, 3. Can anyone tell me how far we need to go up? Well, to figure that out, we figure out what is our highest number of tally marks. So can anyone tell me what the highest number of tally marks is? Correct, it is 3 in all 3 of these cases. So we only need to go up to 3 on our Y-axis, or you could go up to 4 just to be safe. So for the first bar on our graph will be actually the 40 to 49 range. So we're going to draw our first bar. And 40 to 49, how far do I need to go up? Yes, you need to go up to 1. So I will draw my first bar up to 1, and I will label it 40 to 49.